I don't know exactly what led up to it. To me being transported to that world of literal smoke and shadows. I just remember sitting on the bus, wishing the traffic would let up so I could just get home. That's it. Just a regular, normal, everyday bus ride. I don't know if I said something or did something or sat somewhere that I shouldn't have to trigger it. I just know that I was on the transitway heading home 1 second, then I was gone the next. I can vaguely recall seeing finger-like tendrils of smoke billowing in from the windows moments before my world was enveloped in white fog stretching as far as the eye can see. The seat I was sitting on disappeared beneath me, and I fell onto solid ground. My body felt strange, like my insides were drenched in static, or like that prickly feeling you get when you fall asleep on your arm, but without the numbness. I hoped, I had just dozed off on the bus and was dreaming, but everything felt so real. There was a smell to the air, a breeze, pain from the fall, and this incessant low drum putting pressure in my ears. It didn't feel like any dream. It just looked like one. I pushed myself to my feet and took a few tentative steps. The gravity here was wrong. I felt weightless, like being in the water but without the thickness of liquid slowing my movements. My body practically fluttered through the atmosphere, yet I was still tethered to the ground. Everything about this place was wrong. I had no idea what to do. There's no tutorial on what to do if you suddenly get transported to a world of fog. Obviously, someone needs to write one. My first thought was, I'm dead. My bus had gotten jackknifed and we had fallen into a ditch and I must have died. And this was the afterlife. No god, no devil, just thick fog, gusts of air, and a whole lot of nothing. Just when I thought I had come to terms with my reality, or, fallen into the throes of shock, I guess, I saw something in my peripheral vision. I whipped my head and caught sight of a shadow passing by, like a silhouette standing behind frosted glass. Desperate to see who it was, I ran after it, but the shadow never became tangible. It was like chasing a rainbow. It looked real, like you could catch it, but it was always out of reach. I slowed to a stop, only to have another shadow pass right by in front of my nose. These things weren't solid. They were made of smoke. Great. I glanced around and saw more of them. Big ones, small ones. It was strange, because their silhouettes weren't so blurry that I couldn't make out distinctive features. I could see horns, lumps, snouts, all tied to shadows that stood and walked like humans. Another creature walked by, this one as tall as a building. I found myself frozen with fear, hoping that it wouldn't see me. It had a tail, 2 tails. Something was whipping around behind him. His arms were long and his knuckles dragged on the ground like an ape. He could have crushed me if he could have touched me. As he passed, those tails sliced through me, and I felt nothing but momentary increase in the static. Suddenly, I wasn't quite as worried anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was still completely freaked out, but at least I wasn't in danger. In the near distance, a thick tendril of smoke slithered along the ground like a snake in the grass. It was so long, I couldn't see where the shape ended. It was denser than the other shadows, but I didn't think much of it. At least, not until the shadow of a centaur-like creature trotted by, and the tendril struck it. It wrapped itself around its hind leg, tugged, and the smoky centaur became not so smoky anymore. The impact of its fall lifted the fog around it, giving it weight. I was wrong. It wasn't a centaur. It was more like an anthropomorphic goat, with a strong, muscular, humanoid torso covered in a thick black mane that fed into a sleek, nimble-looking goat's body with all four legs. The goatar thrashed, baaing and squealing as it tried to break free, but the tendril held firm. I tried to run, but like you can't get closer to a rainbow, I couldn't get farther from the goat or the tendril. Or hell, I don't know. Maybe I was just running in place. With the odd gravity and the lack of points of reference, I honestly couldn't tell you whether I had moved at all from my initial starting point. I closed my eyes and wished I was home. Then, I heard a terrible roar that shook the ground. I opened my eyes, only to see what the source of the tendril was. It was coming from a tower of thick black smoke with 6 stones hovering just outside of the blackness. No, not stones. Eyes. 4 glimmering purple eyes. 2 half-moon eyes that blinked at different intervals. The half-moons were locked upon me, but the other 2 were on the goatar. The tower of smoke became a mound, and the mound began to waffle side to side, as though being pulled in different directions. It was trying to decide whether to eat me first or save me for dessert. I don't think I've ever felt more powerless in my life. The logical thing to do was run, but running did nothing. I was just exhausting myself. The 4 purple eyes aligned at the top of the mound, and a spherical shape stretched out to meet them. The circle was still attached to the mound by a thin neck that spooled out as needed. The second head appeared, this one to stretch out to the pair of half-moon eyes gazing at me. The head with the other 2 eyes whipped down at the goatar, 2 tendrils shooting out to join it. They held the goatar down as the disembodied eyes seared their way into the goatar's sockets. The creature bucked and screamed in pain. I could hear the sizzle as its eyes melted and were replaced with the purple ones. I was shaking, sweating. The goat creature let out a final whine, and then it stopped moving. The purple eyes now burned into it blinked, and suddenly, the goat's body began to crack like an old painting. Pieces of it flaked away until only a thick black blob-like shadow remained, with purple eyes attached to where its head had been. It stood and trotted into the mound of smoke, adding to its massive volume. The 2 eyes returned and all 4 turned onto me. Oh no. A tendril whipped towards me and I tried to run, but like I said before, there was nowhere to run. It caught me by the wrist. The head with the half-moon eyes slowly stretched towards me, and its eyes detached. They floated closer and closer to me, aligning with my sockets. I thought I was a goner. I legitimately thought that I was going to die even in the goddamn afterlife. But then, the strangest thing happened. A crow. A random crow swooped in out of nowhere and pecked at the eyes. The 6-eyed shadowed freak roared so loud the ground shook. Its half-moon-eyed head snapped back like a yo-yo and the tendril holding me released its grip. Movement drew my eyes overhead, where the silhouettes of birds circled around. There were hundreds of them, and as I watched, they broke from their shadowy forms and became tangible. They flew towards the creature, cawing and scratching. The mound of smoke retracted back into a pillar, and the eyes whipped around frantically. My vision was a mess of birds and feathers flying through the air. I squinted and tried to see what was happening. But then, I felt a hand on my chest. A hand that made the staticky feeling retreat. I squinted, and saw a man with black hair and bright golden eyes staring back at me. He shoved me hard and I fell back. I felt like falling down a well. I could see the smoky world disappearing around me, through an ever-shrinking hole as I fell deeper and deeper. Suddenly, I landed in the middle of the bus aisle, as though I had lost my balance when the bus driver hit the brakes. Everyone was looking at me, and to them, I must have looked pretty weird. You know, disproportionately freaked out about falling on the bus. Someone helped me back up, and I guess I must have been shaky, because someone else gave me their seat. I rode home, reeling from what had happened. It's morning now, and I'm still reeling. Like I said at the start, I have no idea what caused this. I think that's what scares me the most. I don't know how or why it happened, and I'm not sure how I can keep it from happening again.